So now we're going to transition to our next panel, which focuses on citizen activism and citizen journalists. So I'd ask Christian Caryl to come on up to kick that off.
Thanks. Do I? Yes, hello. Thank you very much for coming along today. So I'm Christian Caryl. I'm the editor of Democracy Lab, which some of you may have heard of. It's a joint venture between my employer, the Legatum Institute in London, and Foreign Policy Magazine. And it's a great honor for me to be part of this panel because in my day job, every day, I follow the story of the struggle for democracy around the world. That's what we do. So it is a great thrill for me to have the chance to introduce some of these activists to you. They are the story, and I think it's a story that most of you will be very keen to hear. So first of all, I would like to invite Hala Aldosari, who is a women's rights activist from Saudi Arabia. As I'm sure you can imagine, not an easy task to pursue. And let's give the floor to her and hear her story.
Is it working? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, great. So I'm a medical scientist by training, and I've done here in this country my PhD in health services research. I do other roles as well. I think being part of the health sector in Saudi Arabia exposes problems of governance, problems of gender, best for someone like me. So while growing up, I often heard my father saying that a daughter's duty to a father is a lifetime sentence, right? So it was something that I often hated to hear. He was saying that as a privilege for fathers. But I often said that this is not how it's supposed to be. Women should be independent. Women should be able to live to their full potentials, just like men. And of course, working and being in different capacity in the health sectors as administrator, as a trainer, it just enforced the idea that women should be part of the system in general. So I started writing for a national newspaper in Saudi Arabia, and I started gaining more visibility. At the beginning, I didn't feel the censorship because most of the things that I've written about were things that is more or less concerned with social grievances. That we did have an understanding with the editors of what's expected or what's not. I didn't try to push the envelope at the beginning, thinking as many people that with time and dialogue, things will open up a little bit in Saudi. But I found that the level of censorship, the level of development for my writings as well, actually had forced me to be more vocal and had forced me to present things that I wasn't aware existent in Saudi Arabia. Being part of a public sphere makes people try to reach out to you. So I think the idea of visibility was the first idea that made me more conscious about what's happening in the society. People started emailing me, writers, researchers, common citizens, about their problems. Why not talk about them in your articles? They think that I have the power to change things just by talking about it. And when I tried to push for certain topics of contentious, something like, for instance, the guardianship system, violence against women, I find that the censorship level began to accelerate. So at the time, I felt like it might be a bit of a compromise, what to pick and what to choose. But then I had the privilege of being targeted by a growing group of human rights activists who have empowered me with knowledge and with training on how to navigate a system that is completely closed. Now, Saudi Arabia is one of the places where you can't have independent civil society organization, no political unions, no free press. Everything is censored and restricted really well. That even for people who are being targeted by the state, they can't really talk about it. The first thing that they hear from the state is that you should never talk about your arrests or interrogation, otherwise it will not end well. So even in stories where people are targeted, we couldn't examine how to navigate those stories because we never learned about them. But then with the advent of the internet and with the advent of being part of a bigger picture, we started gaining more visibility. We started gaining more connection. So there were options for people to connect through social networks. A civil society that is virtual rather than physical started to develop in Saudi Arabia. So this is a story that really gained a lot of coverage in many international media. A picture of the king and his crown prince at the time, King Abdullah and Prince Sultan, surrounded by a group of affluent women in Saudi Arabia. All of them, if you notice, are not covered, right? Some of them have their hairs even showing. And this is not common in Saudi Arabia. You would not find women as part of any public forum, at the time, of course. And Madawi Rashid, she's an anthropologist, a scholar of Saudi Arabia. She mentioned that in her book, The Most Masculine State. She mentioned that the state started in response to so many global scrutiny over the position of women and human rights in Saudi Arabia, a charm offensive, basically trying to persuade the world that there is no gender discrimination. Look at those all affluent women being summoned and supported by the leadership. But this is just part of the story. This is not the full story. So for instance, in last month, while working with Human Rights Watch on their report, Boxed In, about the guardianship system, I was invited to participate in a discussion in the State Department. And people there were mentioning to me that, why do I have these types of negative views of Saudi Arabia, while so many affluent women, educated women, are visiting the State Department with official Saudi delegates and telling them that there are huge progress happening on the women front, right? So, well, actually, numbers and statistics refute those claims, right? You could just see that there is no women anywhere. There is less than 20% of women in the workforce, less than 1% of women in any public official in official offices. And women couldn't commute, can't really do anything without the consent of their guardians. We are going to extreme length in order to conduct our simplest business, right? So the numbers really refute all those claims. So blogging was the first thing. I chose violence against women in Saudi healthcare system to document or to study the problem during my PhD. So I met with women frequenting the business, met with professionals in the healthcare system, and they were eager actually to disclose the information. It wasn't sensitive information. Yes, family is central, but they wanted somebody to talk about those issues, to bring it to the attention of officials in Saudi Arabia. So I started this blog. It's a blog on women's rights and violence against women, simply translating and collecting in one place all the information relevant to the Saudi state commitment to human rights and how women could navigate a system of resources in this closed environment. And because of that, I've received a lot of calls, a lot of attention. People who are researchers, people from the media started quoting content. I've created content for the first time. So I felt like an average person with a commitment could do a lot. It's not like you can only learn about things. You can learn and share and create the content that would move and mobilize the medium, which is what happened with the blog. It gained a lot of visibility. I've received a lot of requests. I've spent a lot of time doing it. And for those articles that I couldn't publish in the print media, I found blogs to be the proper place for it. So blogging as well has attracted the media. So one person call became like global call. It's not like a national call anymore. And of course, activists from Saudi Arabia, people with grievances, started calling me for supporting of their initiatives. The woman who started the women driving campaign in 2009, Manal al-Sharif, was arrested in 2011 for 9 days. And because of the access that I've managed to gain online, I managed to talk about her stories in the media. I managed to talk about her story in the European Union, in the Human Rights Council. So I gained a lot of exposure, visibility, and I became on board of the first human rights organization for the Gulf people, for the Arab Gulf states, which of course funded my statements and meetings and travels to advocate for those women. Violence against women, for instance, when Samar Badawi was taken to court and imprisoned because of her desire not to live with her abusive father. We talked a lot about it, that she was released and then allowed to marry the person that she wants. And of course, one of the things that happened at the time is that there are always people who are trying to reach out, people who are unexpectedly trying to reach out. Some of them are Islamic reformists. We often think that Islamic reformists are people who are not part of the game. They are always, patriarchal, supportive of conservative views. But these groups were trying actually to bridge the conflicts among different groups. So they've invited me to talk on a conference that they've organized with Shia, with a French scholar who talks about Islamic movement. And that conference was banned because the Islamist conservatives in the Kuwaiti parliament and in Saudi Arabia had lobbied, because of their influence, to create a campaign of character assassination for myself and for the other speakers. But the good things that happened is that the civil society in Kuwait, Kuwait is one of the most liberal of the Gulf states. The civil society has extended an invitation for us to speak in an alternative platform, one that was not banned. And that gained a lot of attention, that there were forces of Islamic reform within this community that are not against women equality or against Shia equal citizenship. And it really highlighted the whole story that it's not all one, color in our society. And of course, the October 26 driving campaign, it was one of the best examples that has now become a topic for research and master's and PhD, and it was, a well-covered movement. And the one thing I think that made it unique first is that we're the only country that banned women from driving and controlled their mobility in such a severe way. And the other thing is that for the first time, you saw women of Saudi Arabia driving themselves and uploading the pictures or the videos. And it was a campaign that we tried to achieve so much visibility for women, just to show that it's not the society, to refute the claim that it is not the society which is against women, liberation and equality. It was the government who's trying to put a lid on all this and trying to justify that as we have a conservative society. So I'm going to show you just... Okay, we'll leave it in the... Okay. All right, we'll leave it to the end because of the time. Okay, the video at the end is much better, I think. All right, so basically this movement have utilized a lot of platforms. We've utilized Telegram to coordinate a smaller group, to coordinate action with international, for instance, media or human rights organization. We have presented statements to the diplomatic missions. We've done a lot of work on the ground trying to lobby the key community figures to support the campaign by videos as well. I remember one thing that was really funny, driving in Riyadh with 3 other women and each one alternatively taking to the wheel. And there is another car going by us, and with all the camera, the TV man are trying to pop up and say, and photograph each one of us while driving. It was really funny to be photographed on Riyadh streets in this way as you're filming a movie. I just want to show you one more thing. That's the video that I want to show. It's a hangout that I made for 1 year. Yes.
RNW initiated Revitalizing, or Out of Coverage, a live online talk show hosted by Hala Aldosari, a prominent Saudi activist. Her guests from inside and outside Saudi Arabia discuss important topics, such as arbitrary detention, women not being allowed to drive, and high divorce rates. These are major issues to Saudi youth that cannot be discussed in official Saudi media because of censorship, social taboos, or fear of repercussions. Hala, located in the US, is being trained on the job by RNW Media and partners. RNW is always looking for innovative ways to communicate with its audiences, taking into account the needs and possibilities of the countries involved. the Out of Coverage show is produced within Google Hangouts, making it possible for all the guests to log on from their own homes or safe places. All they need is an internet connection and a camera on their computer. Whenever necessary, RNW provides the guests with a safe and anonymous connection.
Well, that's an example of something that I started, and it just came because of the visibility. It's a very low-cost production, and it just depends on networks from youth and women's rights. So having been at the center of writers' networks, health professionals, educators, people who are from different walks of life, and of course followers on Twitter, to harness this power, you just need to select those voices with grievances that do not have the chance to be represented in official media and put them in a show like this. So we did surveys of all the crucial and current grievances in Saudi Arabia. We've asked people to comment on the surveys. We've presented the surveys here, and we've hosted people who had never been on the media before, and we made their voices heard. We had governors, we had ministers, we have advisors to the royal court, and it really created a good movement. But of course, because of the funding issue, we couldn't really continue beyond 1 year.
Sorry, we have to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think that's it. It just shows that the more visibility, the more opportunities, and the more ways that we can find creative means to basically deal with whatever we have. I can keep that. I can give you.
Yes, thank you very, very much. Apologies for intervening there at the end. And now we'd like to welcome Thandeka Kathi from South Africa, who is as a senior researcher in the local government program of the Social Justice Coalition in South Africa. I chatted with her a little bit before the event. I think she has some very interesting stories to tell. Let's try to keep it under 10 minutes, right? If we can. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Christian, for the lovely introduction. I'm from South Africa. As you know, South Africa is 22 years into its democracy. We are governed by the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, with Bill of Rights. However, there's a plight of service delivery issues in South Africa. And so I work in an informal settlement called Caryl in South Africa. It's on the fringes of Cape Town, but it's a part of Cape Town. So I'm going to speak about the grassroots level, grassroots social movements and their role in advancing democracy. I come from the Social Justice Coalition, also known as the SJC, the acronym SJC. So I'll be referring to the SJC. I'm talking about the Social Justice Coalition. We are a membership-based organization with about 3,000 members and with 15 branches in Caryl. We have partners globally, and we have two programs: the local government program, which looks at policy, at government policy, and then we have policing, which looks at the safety and police resources redistribution. Okay, our vision or our mission statement is for the advancement of constitutional rights, particularly the rights to life and the rights to human dignity, especially for people living in informal settlements. One of the key things that our constitution, because we come from such a repressive past with apartheid, where everything was decided by the government, our constitution calls for equity. So I, as an individual, should be able to decide on which school that I should go to, the type of community that I should be in, and things like that. And but we find that as time goes by, that space has been closing in. So we mobilize as an NGO. We mobilize through education. Sorry, okay. We mobilize through education. We mobilize through education, through research. One of the things is, because we are in a community, we need to get a buy-in from the structures that are in the community before we can conduct any sort of research in that community. Can you please go to the next slide? Okay. And one of the ways that we mobilize is through something called a social audit. I'm not sure if you're aware of a social audit, but a social audit was originated from India. It's a process whereby it's community-led and the community monitors where the government expenditure goes to. So what happens is the community gets together and they verify that what the government says is happening can actually be verified on the ground in terms of the monetary expenditure. So one of the principles of a social audit is that it has to be community-led. It has to realize constitutional rights. It should be a part of a broader campaign because a social audit usually takes space within a month, so it needs to be a part of a broader campaign. For instance, the social audits that we do are on sanitation, and so there's a broader campaign called the Campaign for Clean Water and Access to Sanitation. And it should also gather evidence and legitimize community experiences. So what we have found is that the government will come in and tell the community, this is the type of sanitation that you should have, or this is what should happen in your community, without consulting with the community first. So what happens is that active citizenship sort of like dies because the community does not have a say in what happens in their own surroundings. And then we also examine government documents. In order for a social audit to be successful, you need to have government documents. And one of the issues that we have faced is that in the beginning, before social audits became prevalent, the government used to have information online, but they have since taken the information down, even though by law they are required to have the information online. And because our work is very political, we cannot be seen to be a part of any political party or taking part. So one of the ways that the government tries to delegitimize our work is by saying that we are affiliated with political party X or political party Y. So we are non-partisan. You must make sure that your social audit is non-partisan. Okay, I was asked to talk about our janitorial service social audit. So basically, in Caryl, as you saw with the first slide and that picture on the first slide, sanitation is a huge issue in Caryl. And so we have been campaigning for safe communities, safe and clean communities since 2010. And one of the responses that the government did was they built flush toilets. But they built flush toilets without consulting the community first. So most of them were not maintained, were broken, and were far from people's homes. So people were getting mugged and raped and sometimes killed on their way to the toilets. Yeah, it seems funny, but it's a real issue. And then, so one of our demands, there was a summit with the government and other key role players. And within that summit, one of our demands was that it's great that you now have flush toilets, but most of them are in an unusable state because they are not well maintained. So you need to have janitors to look after these toilets. And so that was one of the key issues that we were pushing forward. And the government sort of like agreed with that. And they had a rollout of the janitorial service. And then the issue was that the rollout was so haphazard and there was no consultation. So there were issues with it, and residents came to us and they complained. And so we decided to do a social audit in 2014 on the janitorial service. Some of the findings was that so the government is under this illusion that if you outsource a service, it means that you're also outsourcing your obligation. And those are two different things. You can never outsource your obligation as the government. You know, it's always there. So what the City of Cape Town has done is that it doesn't monitor the service. Those were some of the findings. We also found that it was not planned. We also found that most of the toilets were broken and in an unusable state. We also found that that the workers were meant to be inoculated before starting the work because of health issues and hazards and things like that. But most of them had actually started work without being inoculated. And we also found that most of them were supposed to be trained on health and safety hazards, but they were not trained. And because of all these issues with toilets being locked and unusable, most of the residents actually prefer to go and use the open field 22 years after democracy. And so the city's approach has been that of denialism. So they deny that like there's an issue of sanitation in Khayelitsha, even though it's so obvious. And I would put this challenge to you that the next time you fly into South Africa, Khayelitsha is one of the informal settlements, are like one of the first things that you see. And so, and maybe take a tour and you will see the sanitation and the stench that you think the moment that you walk into Khayelitsha is so strong. Like I don't even understand why there would be denialism over it. And so one of the things is that they will pass the buck and they'll say, no, it's not our responsibility. It's human settlement's responsibility, or it's not our responsibility, it's that responsibility. So it's like there's a lack of coordination within the city itself and within the city and provincial government and the city and national government. And as I mentioned before, there's like an issue of lack of consultation and also a lack of planning. And then there's also this continued narrative of informal settlements being temporary and therefore needing temporary solutions or temporary sanitation. And then, as I mentioned before, there's a closing in of existing participation spaces. You okay? Okay, yeah. There's a lack of clear policy. Sorry, I'm running out of time. And then I've also mentioned those, so we can move on to the next one. One of the breakthroughs that we've had was with the janitorial service, where there were like flush toilets that were introduced, and also there were job opportunities. We were also invited to comment on the national draft policy on sanitation. And also we've done budget work where we've introduced the budget to like a population of people who did not have access to it in the beginning. Yeah. And then last week, we've done coding with like a coding company. We've also did a costing model with researchers, and we're also working with the Office of the Chief Procurement Office on an online portal. And we're also trying very hard to reclaim the local government space. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And now I'd like to invite Engin Önder from 140 Journos, Turkey. Is Engin here? Excellent. Great to have you here.
It must be working now? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Engin Önder. I'm representing 140 Journos New Media Journalism Project here. I was 10, and my father visited Houston, and he brought some gifts from NASA. He brought some postcards and keychains, and I wanted to be an astronaut at the time. Like many of my peers those years. But then years pass, I want to be a soccer player, but there is a problem in my ankle, so I can't really run, so this dream also fades out. I couldn't also be an astronaut, but I'm here right now, so I guess this story is kind of worth listening. Because nobody wants to be an activist. Yeah, like it's not a life goal, but you end up being one. So I guess that's the story you came here to listen, I believe. Which one? This one? Okay. So I participated only one protest in my life, and it was about internet freedom in 2011. So activism actually is not my type. Like going to the streets is not my type, but I was, I guess, performing a different kind of activism, or the goal was not doing activism, but I was actively doing something to change, so the output was that. Oops. Sorry. Yeah. And like the activism today emerges from like troubles. As I said, nobody wants to be an activist, but like different peers talked here, and like since the situation of women in Saudi Arabia is like that today, she mobilized communities and tried to change some stuff. And in my example, in Turkey, we felt a problem with media, as you may know. And that was the troubled time that took us to being active. We never called ourselves activists or journalists, but at the end of the day, we found ourselves doing a kind of activist job, a journalism project. And our story begins pretty late, like at the end of 2011, and we, I guess, realized the problem of Turkish media pretty late, but as soon as we diagnosed the problem in Turkish media, we took an action. And at the end of 2011, Turkish military jets bombarded 34 civilians in the Turkish-Iraqi border. And that's a big news normally, right? Like you would expect to see it on television or newspapers, but we couldn't. So, but when we opened up our Twitter accounts, there was a storm of information. So that was the tipping point for us. And we talked to our friends saying, you know, like mainstream media purposely do not share this information because, there is a because here, because they had a lot of tenders with the government.
Yeah. I'm terribly sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Who is we? You're talking about we. I don't know who you're talking about.
The co-founders of 140 Journals. We were like.
Which is what?
We were three friends.
Yeah.
I'm 24 years old, and at the time I was like 20. So some friends from college, some friends from like my social circle. So it's all like nobody has a journalism background, by the way, in the project. So everyone was pissed off at media. Let's say that's the community.
Got it.
But everyone was pissed off, and everyone wanted to make a kind of change, and that was the motivation that brought us together. And why do mainstream media do that? Because they had tenders with the government. They were doing other businesses than media, like energy, construction. You know, these sectors require you to work closely side by side with the government. So media is used as a tool to get along well. So actually the ecopolitics of mainstream media is so insoluble that we had to take a kind of initiative and do something. And like I was going to college, but I played hooky a lot at the school because on the weekdays we were with a friend, like on the right-hand side, it's me, and the other is my business partner. And we were going to hearings. There were lots of controversial hearings at courtrooms in Istanbul. And we were going there, live tweeting from there, and sharing what we heard in the trial with public. And these are the weekdays. And you know, normally a college student go out on weekend and spend some time with friends. But rather, we were going to protests organized by people we don't know. We don't have much intersecting points, but they were also the victims of the ecopolitics of mainstream media. So we felt like we should give them a kind of voice because we knew how to use social media platforms in their nature. So what makes Turkey kind of special is that there is an enormous access to information. Like everyone has a phone, generally smartphone, and internet connection. Like a great deal of Turkey's population is also online. So that was the potential we saw, and I believe Turkey is a great lab because of this access to information, plus a Middle Eastern agenda, like explosions and terrorism and stuff. So it gives us the chance to focus on serious issues and do kind of research and development on journalism, using all new media technologies and tools. So to sum up what 140 Journos is doing right now, like we have an amazing reach, 100 million per month in terms of content impression. And we have 250,000 followers across social media. And we have, like, that's I guess, most important part. We have 500 people sending us content regularly or irregularly from 80 different districts of Turkey. So, like, having these people in one phone call distance is pretty important while gathering newsworthy information that actually says something different than what mainstream media report. Like, we chose to or not to be or anti-something. Like, we always wanted to, like with the friends in our social circle and 140 Journos, we always wanted to propose something new. Maybe we didn't like mumbling about the problems that much, but rather we wanted to carry out the ideas that we had in mind. And for example, like the data that can be found on news websites. So we didn't like it, for example, or we didn't trust it. So we chose to gather the different perspective, different kinds of data, and provide it on well-designed. So we crowdsource information. We verify this information. This is one of the specialties of the work we do, and we use design as a narrative tool. I have advertising background, so I always wanted, and I've been doing, to use creative talent for public good. So it's kind of the reflection of that. We didn't like the pictures on news sites. We love watching photo stories. We love to produce and consume stories well narrated through photography. So we create this. We didn't like the pictures of these political leaders or the boring visual content on news websites. So we created something new. So it's colorful, inclusive, crowdsourced. So these are the characteristics of our broadcast. And normally, there is this claim, the claim that I hear the most. Social media, how can we trust the content of social media? There are plenty of ways of verification for the data available on the internet. And we've been developing new verification models, technical plus analog, like human-wise verification models since then.
Okay, so we need to...
Yeah. So we are using popular culture elements too much. That's also one of the characteristics. While narrating a story, if we find editorially an intersecting point with a popular culture element, we use it just like in this poster. We even use very interesting social media platforms for newsmaking. Aside from Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, WhatsApp, Periscope, SoundCloud, we use all of these in their nature, but we also use Tinder, which is a dating app. Maybe some of you use it. How can you use a dating app for newsmaking? That's the trick. That's what we call the research and development in journalism, and that was the output of a question or of a quest. That is, can there be any other way other than broadcasting? Can we singularly reach people in case of need? So we reached 1,000 people in 6 months through this dating app, and we are going to share our findings. And we used public spaces for debates, physical and digital debates. This is a very significant tower in Istanbul, Galata Tower, and we held a debate on nuclear energy, the necessity of nuclear energy, with all related parties. In 2014, there was rumor, there is fraud in the elections, local elections in Turkey, and we developed a tool for people to fact check on the election tally sheets. And this system has been handed over to an NGO working on that. Right now, I'm so proud that the previous election, like the current government won the election by far. But I know that was a fair election thanks to our code, empowered the mobilized grassroots community that worked on the verification of the elections. So yeah.
Gotta wrap it up.
Yeah. So Generation Y, like people aged 18, 35 right now, use new media tools, new tools to challenge. But there's a but here, which is like Turkey, like Occupy movement in the US, Spain, Greece, Ukraine, Turkey, Hong Kong. These are all countries that Generation Y uprised in the past 5 years. But that was the same pitfall, making our tools, fetishizing the new media tools as if they are the goal. No, it's just a tool. Facebook dies, Twitter dies, some other thing occurs, but the point remains. Point is passing your message along, and I guess we missed that. And I really like this. Our mentor and academician at University of North Carolina, Zeynep Tüfekçi, says, the internet has made social change so easy to organize, but hard to win. So we get organized on social media, but we always fail. And there is a reason for that, and we don't really want to fall into that trap. So as a result, I believe like right now, like it's been 4 years since we started doing 140 journals, and we grew online. We have these impression numbers and so forth. But the important thing is combining online visibility and power with offline. And as Zeynep Tüfekçi says, online is virtual while offline is real. Distinction is outdated. So offline or online can also be real. So I guess we skip that. And it does not reflect, as she says, current social practices of most. It's just wrong. So the point is, now from that time on, like that's also a kind of a friendly reminder to activists all around the world. If you get organized online, yeah, it's easy, but you can't win if you neglect the existence of offline gathering and organization. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks very much. And now I would like to invite Masih Alinejad, who is the founder of My Stealthy Freedom in Iran. Wonderful name. See what she has to say.
No, I'm gonna ask you. Okay. Hi everyone. I know I'm the last person. You don't have energy now. Yeah, you have to be enthusiastic now, because I'm going to talk about those women who have been victimized always through Iranian media and Western media outside Iran. But I'm going to show you the true face of Iranian women and the true face of Iranian people. In reality, we have only one Iran on the map, but we have two Iran. One which just show you the official Iran, the government of Iran, the state media, and all the official newspapers. But another one, which I called the stealthy Iran, is it underground. And we have to use social media to show the true face of Iran. But first of all, let me introduce myself. I come from a small village to a traditional family, grew up to a traditional family. And I was told that I have to burn the flag of United States of America every morning in the assembly of our school, like many other people. Unfortunately, I was really good at burning your flag. And that was the face of Iran, the official Iran, which I call it legal Iran. And I was told that a good woman should stay behind the curtain. not having a loud voice, not showing your hair. And as my brother from Turkey said, that he didn't want to be an activist. From the age of 7, I wanted to be an activist because being active was forbidden for women. I wanted to be a singer. Singing solo for women is forbidden. I want to be a dancer. Dancing is forbidden for women inside Iran. I want to ride a bicycle, which was forbidden. So I'm coming from a land of, everything is forbidden for me as a woman. So I wanted to be a woman and be active. That's all. And when I was just a little girl, I always thought when earthquake happened in my village and we lost people, or when my school was burned down, I thought it's just all normal, accident. And it's happening just because of, God doesn't like us and send disasters to us. We have newspapers inside Iran, but we never knew that these are news. And we have to blame the local government. We thought these are normal disasters. And we have to pray and ask God to help us, to rescue us, to save us. And for me, when I grew up in a small village, and then my brother was arrested, all those people who got executed after a revolution, Iranian Islamic Revolution, I thought these are just all happening because they deserve to be executed. They deserve to be, punished by the government and the God. I didn't know that these are the news. And I was a teenager. And then I lost my best friend, falling down on a wooden bridge because we had to go to another village to go for high school. And when I lost my friend, I thought this is a disaster. God sent it to us. I didn't know that these all accidents which is happening, it's the lack of having a proper government inside Iran. When I was arrested with my brother, some of my friends, we were just spreading some newsletter, reading books, and trying to invite other people to read these forbidden books inside Iran, underground books. We were arrested because of writing a slogan on the wall. In that time, none of the newspapers wrote about us. So we were unknown victims. Coming from this situation and this background helped me to think about it when I became a journalist, working for those mainstream media which the Turkish activists blame the mainstream media, which is absolutely correct. So I came from this background and working for mainstream media inside Iran, never ever hearing the real voice of people from small villages, small societies, small towns around the world, just running after the politicians, the MPs. I was a parliamentary journalist and getting news from them. So that was the government of Iran creating the news, and we had to follow the news. I knew there's something missing. There are a lot of news around my small town inside Iran, but we are not aware of those news. So I decided to use my weapon to make awareness that every individual person can be their own media. So how I discovered that? When I left Iran 2009, of course, before leaving Iran, I was a troublemaker. That's why I got expelled from Iranian parliament, just because of being too loud and not a proper good woman. But when I left Iran, everything has changed for me because of this weapon. I lost my newspaper. After 2009 election, when the government stole the election, people took the street to protest. I had a name in Iran, a well-known political journalist. And when the government killed demonstrators, they denied all the killings. So I had a name, a useless name, because they closed down the newspaper that I worked for as well. My editor was one of the presidential challenger. So I was in the United States of America without any newspaper. So I thought that this is a time I can use my name, and using Facebook as my newspaper, as my own media, and inviting people inside Iran to talk about those people who got killed and who got into prison. And it happened that my Facebook page was having more, audiences than the newspaper that I work for. Why? Because I asked people to be their own media. So they started to send all the true news. The government were denying the killings, but the mothers, I started to find, from now, I have to say, I interviewed the family of 57 people who got lost, killed, tortured to death through my Facebook and social media. I started to teach them how to film themselves. The mothers who still live in Iran, and you might think this is dangerous for them, but they don't have anything more to lose. They lost their beloved one. This is the true face of Iran. So you only turn on the TV, you hear the voice of Iranian government, but when you go to social media and Facebook and Twitter, you hear the true face of those mothers, those government who are in power. They're censoring these powerful mothers. But that was a lesson for me. When my Facebook page got cheerless, full of sorrow and sad news, I started to talk about my personal life, publishing a picture of myself here in the West. And I started to talk to those women inside Iran that we have been stealthy whole our life. We never had the chance to talk about our personality, our identity, our true selves. Let's talk about our true self. Because, stealthy freedom, which you can, in Iran, if the government tell you do not do anything, you do everything what they say to you, not doing that. So I said that is not going to scare the government. But if we talk about this loud, that's going to scare the government. I invited them to send their photos and talk about their true selves. And I was bombarded by pictures of those women who send their photos without headscarf, which is a punishable crime inside Iran. And now I'm a founder of My Stealthy Freedom, which is a platform with 1 million followers. People just sending their photos without headscarves and challenging the compulsory hijab laws. But I want to show you now that how you can recognize these people inside Iran. Because if you talk to any officials, I just met 15 congressmen last week, and they never knew that the society in Iran, they're more progressive than Saudi Arabia. I think you confirmed that. But they were saying that we heard that women are not allowed to vote, women are not allowed to drive in Iran, women are not allowed. I said, no, this is wrong. More than 60% of university places is occupied by women inside Iran. Women in Iran and the society in Iran are more progressive than the government in Iran. But this is the way that the government wants to censor these true face and true voice of Iran. So I want to show you that this is actually the My Stealthy Freedom page, and that is a punishable crime. But I want to show you that the video which shows you that how the government of Iran tried to censor and put the stealthy freedom underground. But I strongly believe that if you see it, you're going to show the video? So if you see this, it's really, it's nothing for you that people of Iran using social media to say that we want to read all the forbidden books, we want to dance, we want to sing, we want to, be in love with someone who we love. But this is important because in Iran, being in love, for me, it's forbidden, but the Sharia law allows men to have 4 wives. That is why I think it is really important to empower ordinary people. I'm going to show you the video and tell you about what I have been doing right now and making these people, ordinary people inside Iran, to be their own storytellers. Yeah.
Video, and then we'll all go up with questions.
Oh, no. No, after that, I need 1 minute. Sure.
Whole video?
روی نقشه جهان یک ایران داریم، اما در حقیقت ما 2 ایران داریم. 2 ایران کاملا متفاوت. ایران اول یک ایران مجاز است. و ایران دوم یک ایران غیر مجاز. در ایران مجاز مردم به قوانین وضع شده توسط حکومت تن میدن تا تحصیل و کار کنند. در ایران غیر مجاز مردم قوانین حکومتی رو دور میزنند تا زندگی کنند. خیلی ها میگن فقط طبقه متوسط و جامعه شهری و پولدارها عضو ایران غیر مجاز هستند. برخی ها هم میگن دامنه ممنوعه های جمهوری اسلامی در ایران آنقدر زیاده که ایرانیان از هر طبقه و قشری که باشند حتما یک بخشی از زندگی عادیشون در ایران غیر مجازه. و اما ممنوعه ها در ایران غیر مجاز چیست تا ببینیم که در این ایران چه کسانی زندگی میکنند.
If we don't have time yet. So that was a list of all the activities that we are banned to do it, but we do it. So I wanted to just tell you that change only comes to Iran through Iranian women. They recognize now, the women of Iran, they have agency and they have power. But as far as when all the politicians outside Iran or international communities, they do not recognize the stealthy Iran, the underground Iran, and they ignore the true Iran, and they only recognize the government of Iran, I have to say that the West and the government of Iran putting more pressure on the society. When the West applies sanction on Iran, this is the people of Iran suffering from sanction, not the government of Iran. So now the people of Iran trying to use the social media and tell the rest of the world that you have to recognize us. Because the government of Iran they have got guns and bullets. They have powers. They have prison. They have money. They have all the media to oppress their own society. But we only have our weapon are just mobile, smartphone, just internet, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And this is the only way that you can hear the real voice of Iran. That is why every week I started to invite ordinary women and ordinary people inside Iran to film themselves and send the film to me and be their own storytellers. So every week you can empower ordinary people and hear the true story of ordinary people through social media and ask mainstream media, all that, like CNN, Channel 4, to see this. I don't believe that we have to victimize those people in the Middle East. They have power, and this is our fault. And this is our weakness, that we cannot open the window and invite them to be seen, to be visible, to be heard. And that is why I always blame the mainstream media and the international community that you only wait. And when the people of Iran or Middle East, they're suffering from war or they got attacked or a seed thrown on women's face, then you go to them and you cover the news. No, you have to hear the people in the Middle East when they are powerful enough to be their own media. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you want me to speak?
Yeah, I think you can. Come on up. Come on up. Oh, are you okay? It's a trap. Yes, excellent. Oh, maybe I'm not in the right seat. So thank you very much. We don't have a lot of time left, so I think I'd just like to open it up for questions for the audience, because I suspect there are some questions. If there aren't, then I will ask a few of my own. We can pass the mic around. How about this fine lady here?
Just a quick question.
And please do identify yourself and try to keep it to one question if you could.
Sure.
Because we don't have much time. Let's try to give everybody the chance to.
I'm Clara Bilgin, and I come from Virginia International University. I'm a dean of a School of Public and International Relations there. I have a question for Engin. Is this journalist network still working? Is there anything still open in Turkey? I mean, I would be very surprised if there is, but if you tell me, I would be tremendously happy. And I would just push the envelope here with one more for our last speaker. So what? I mean, social media, women are expressing themselves, and this is coming on the internet. What is this changing, and how fast, if it is? Thank you.
Excellent questions. Who would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. There are still working many powerful alternative media outlets. Generally, the narration in international press is a little sick. So I strictly recommend you, the government right now is very oppressive in many senses, and you hear many of the media closures and so forth. And this makes you concerned a lot. But there is also another perspective that is not told that much. So there are still powerful alternative media outlets. There are powerful media outlets, more powerful media outlets than 140 journos too. But it doesn't change the fact that Turkish media is in a very deep, big problem. But the use of social media in creative ways is very pervasive. And this is a great way out in that. Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up to that. So you guys use social media, but I think especially Twitter?
Yeah.
Hence your name?
Yeah, the strongest place is Twitter.
And Twitter has been bombarded with court orders from the Erdogan government.
Yeah, but it's general.
Shut people down. Has that happened to you?
How it works? No. How it works is the courts ban a specific URL, like tweet link, and the access to it is banned. But like even my mother uses VPN, these virtual private networks. So it's like a default reflex, because like that's been going on for almost 10 years. And the picture I showed about the protest was a kind of new regulation in 2011 about internet, governing the internet. So we walked to oppose to it. But
bottom line is you're fighting back. There's still some space.
Yeah, like all social media platforms are open and active working, but banning is to specific URLs
individual
that anyone can get around.
Right. Cool. Okay.
I strongly believe that empowering the society, especially the women, can help to bring democracy and change. Democracy does not come overnight. In Iran, women has been censored for more than 38 years. You never, ever have the chance to see the true face of women. And when you're not allowed to have your true voice on your own media, then you're not feeling as powerful as those people who have their own voice to challenge the government. So for me, it is really important to give voice to those voiceless people inside Iran. And then the only thing can scare a dictator is the true face of the society and powerful women. Let me give you one example. In my personal experience, when I had no knowledge about, what can be news, what is my right, what is, something really important that I had to fight, my father always, was in the situation could keep me silent. I love my father, but he is from another generation. He never knew what I wanted. But when I was silent and I never had my true voice, I was accepted all what he was telling me. Hijab is good. It's an order from God. Hijab is good for your own dignity. But when I started to read my own books and doing all the forbidden things that the government of Iran asked us to be banned and to be good person, then I found that no, the world, this is 21st century. Women are in power. Here in America, there's a woman fighting for presidency. Theresa May in England, Angela Merkel in Germany. But in Iran, the clerics tell us if you show your hair, the rivers, the seas will run dry. So we have to show those government, no, this is 21st century, and this is the powerful women inside Iran, and that's the only way if we can get the attention of the international community and we stand all together, then we can bring the wall down. I call compulsory hijab a wall. But all the censorship is a wall. We have to bring this wall down first. Another thing, which I'm going to make it short, burkini ban in France has been suspended less than a month. Why? Because the whole world was standing with French women. So that is why I don't blame Iranian women and saying that, so what, you're showing yourself using social media, nothing can happen. No, we have to blame the international community, because more than 30 years, the female politicians who are now condemning burkini ban, they go to Iran, they visit Islamic Republic of Iran, and they obey the compulsory law. They obey the compulsory hijab without challenging it. That is why hijab has remained for more than 38 years. So we need all people, especially the female politicians around the world, to answer your question. Thank you so much.
Oh, good. I'd like to see a lot of questions. The gentleman in the blue tie, and then we'll come to you, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
This gentleman first.
My name is Sefer. I come from Macedonia. I'm a Community Solution Program Fellow from Department of State. And I wanted to ask a quick question to Engin. You said that your core value was creating, not anti-something, right? Yeah. And what was the position on the coup night, coup attempt night? How that was covered that night? And as well, is your platform used to create a movement in, do people use your platform to create movements in Turkey, especially now when we need some democracy there?
Yeah, thank you. Like at the night of the coup attempt, we did an excellent job. Actually, all the numbers, all the reach that I told you about has reached to that level from that day on. Like, and it's not dropping right now. So we gained so many followers, and we reached to so many people that night, and so many people from different cities of Turkey sent content. And we verified and shared, and it was like a very scary night for everyone in Turkey, including our editors and people we know. So it was a like good journalism that night, and so many people said thank you, and we did not see any pressure about that night. And the other question is the platform used? Yeah, it is used too much. It's growing too very fast in terms of quality and quantity. So people use, and like there are so many international journalists, foreign journalists, academies following 140 journals, showing it as a reference point in international community. Like Time last year showed me as the man transforming journalism in Turkey. So it was a good international recognition too. In Turkey, we do a lot of tours too, like to carry out this offline recognition. We visit municipalities in rural cities and universities in the other cities to get organized over there, to get new subscribers and content producers, to introduce ourselves and make them our contributors. So it's very important to get organized that way too. And yeah, like maybe I can visit here a year later, and if you show up again, I can show you more progress. But it's been good. It's growing faster than any time before. Yeah.
So to that gentleman.
Hi, my name is Michael Larkin. I represent the Asia Program for Young Professionals International Affairs. And I apologize for this being an ambitious question, but I don't get this opportunity too much. The other two panels dealt a lot with what can outside actors, specifically the United States, do to support democracy and human rights. And I just want to take this opportunity to ask persons such as yourself, what do you expect, want, or do not want outside actors to do to support those causes that are important to you? And this question is for anyone who may want to take a shot at it. Thank you so much.
What about you, Hala?
Sure.
You want to give it a shot?
Yeah, well, this is a most frequent question that I get. Well, first of all, I think the talk by the senator who opened the second session here was very enlightening. He said that we should export the values. So what is the political values of the United States? This freedom of press, freedom of expression. When it comes to creating business with places like Iran, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, is business or China? Is business more important than the values? So the thing that we're looking for is to find partners in the causes that we're calling for. Without those causes, business will not flourish. Economy will not be stable. And we can see the Middle East as a war zone because of the sectarian violence, because of the authoritarian governments. And nothing has been happening on empowering those actors or factions who are calling for democracy. Most of the people that in Saudi Arabia who used to work with me are now in exile, just like myself. We can't work from our own community. And this is really a sad reality. I've been trying to find ways to reach to other people. And most of the people are afraid to speak out. There is no protection. Nabil Rajab, who is one of the founders of the Gulf Center for Human Rights, are now imprisoned because he met Caryl when he visited Bahrain. And he submitted a letter to protect those voices, to protect those American values. So the best thing that can be done is to extend and export to those American values of freedom of expression, to those places which suffers from those restrictions.
Does that answer your question? Thanks very much. So, and then this gentleman in the back with the beard, and then we can come to you, sir.
My name is Ali, and I'm from the American Bar Association. I'm their staff attorney for the Middle East and North Africa region. And I work on human rights defenders cases. So I have a question for Hala. So Hala, have you ever received threats from the Saudi government because of your, the type of your work you do? And another question, do you have any recommendations for the US government to engage maybe with the Saudi government to work on improving the human rights situation, women's rights situation in Saudi Arabia? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, for the first question, I didn't get any direct confrontation because I was doing my PhD and my advocacy in the US at the same time. So most of the time that I started working more in a confrontational way was done while I'm already outside. The other thing is that there are other means of power, like my name always comes up in the official media in Saudi Arabia as somebody who's a traitor with a different discourse, with a different narratives when speaking to the international media than to the local media. But because I voice the concerns of rationalists in Saudi Arabia, I am very much in connection to their own writings, to their own demands. I don't see myself as somebody who can be easily targeted by the Saudi Arabia and discredited easily, because my voice is the same voice of those people who are already calling for these things inside Saudi Arabia. So there is nothing direct. I'm not a religious extremist. I'm not somebody who is, against the state or working within organizations. I'm just an individual who is calling for a certain set of values that nobody can argue about. So I've tried to maintain this balance in my narratives. So yes, while I wasn't in the US in the last 2 years, because there were so many activists who were imprisoned, I had to up my activism a little bit and do public statements that was recorded. One of them is the Hangout program. We did a special episode on the political prisoners. And of course, that really granted me a lot of backlash. So other activists said that my name came up in their interrogations. So this is why I couldn't go back, but not something direct. I get a call from the Saudi embassy asking me not to participate in a conference at the beginning of the year, organized to speak about the human rights violations in Saudi Arabia. By the time I was on a fellowship funded by my work in Saudi, so I refrained because I still feel my work was at the time more important to promote women and protection from violence. But I had to quit my job in Saudi and stay here. Now working in the Arab Gulf State, they provided me with a platform where I can continue working on women's issues. I find my research work informative to larger audience. So I'm a bit safe. What would be a US government policy to? Well, they meet all of the activists out there. And the best approach I've seen is from the European Union, places where there is no direct business relationships with Saudi Arabia. Germany, for instance, have caused the release of the 2 women drivers charged with terrorism and the lifting of the ban of travel that was enforced on them. But not US did not involve. And by keeping, it doesn't mean you have to be in confrontational mode when you try to deal with your allies in the US, in the Middle East. So US always says we try to maintain diplomatic ties, and we feel that if we bring about the issues of human rights, it might jeopardize this relationship. because it's very important to maintain, regional security and anti-terrorism, function. But this is not necessarily true. We've seen that Germany have been effective in negotiating the freedom and protection, some kind of measures, free space for people to express their opinions, while still working with Saudi Arabia. So they are more proactive, and they have more women. So one of the things I've heard from an Iranian judge who resides, she's a very prominent activist, Shireen Abadi. She said that she called on the European governments to send women representatives to Saudi Arabia. And I think if they did that in Iran, women would be more effective in changing the status quo and causing the cultural transformation. So that would be something that U.S. Embassy and U.S. State Department can do, having more women in there and having listening as well, because they think that it is best to keep the status quo because we don't want to wreck more the boat in the Middle East. But it will only get worse with the oppressive regimes. It will not get any stability.
So I'd just like to ask a question before we go on. So we'll come to you in a moment. I'd like to ask a question of Thandeka. So you mentioned in your presentation that space is closing for the work that you do, and I was very struck by that because, as you also noted, South Africa is a democracy. You have elected governments, elected officials. You just had a very interesting local election, which shook things up a lot. And I'd like to hear you just address the issue insofar as you wish to. What does that mean practically for your work? What do you mean by closing space?
Okay.
What precisely is happening there?
Okay, so for instance, with our social audit work, before we used to receive government official documents online, but now we have to go through a process called PIA, which is the Promotion of Access to Information Act, where we have to request the government to give us their formal documents. And if they feel like they don't want to give it to us, then they don't. And then we have to then appeal that decision. So it's become more...
Government has become less responsive.
Less responsive, and with our budget work, for instance, before there was like 3 weeks to submit submissions to the budget, and then out of the blue, like the government changed it to 2 weeks. And then we wrote an opinion piece about it, and then they changed their minds, and they were like, okay, it's 3 weeks again. So
do you feel that democratic institutions in South Africa are in trouble? That there's a more general problem, or is this just at your local level?
I think, especially with our budget work, when we had 3,000 submissions this year, someone tweeted us from Johannesburg and said, Cape Town has 3,000 submissions this year, but we only have 23. So it's things like that, yeah.
Interesting.
So while on paper, democracy seems to be alive, on the ground, politicians are trying very hard to sort of close existing structures, and
So this story starts to overlap with the other stories we're hearing today. So let's have this gentleman here very quickly, and then the lady in the green sweater, and I think that's probably going to bring us to the end. So, sir?
Thank you. Mohammed Al-Shwaiter, Humphrey alumni at American University from Yemen. Thank you so much for all. My question, as I have this experience back in Yemen, how all of you can think compromise between believing in freedom and human rights and at the same time keeping your platform opening if you are inside these countries. So on one hand, you need to advocate for all human rights and without limit, but at the same time, you need for your safety or the advocates or to keep your office or platform open. Do you compromise or prioritize your, list of human rights? And is it
so the conflict, the tension between advocating for human rights and
the values of the government, how to
keeping yourself going? Yes. Would you like to?
I would just say, because we don't have any official independent organizations, civil society organizations, Saudi, I had to rely a lot on working with international organizations. So things that I can't carry on openly, like the report boxed in of guardianship, for instance. I made the work of reaching 2 women inside Saudi Arabia, bringing the forms needed to prove the cases. For instance, whatever you are trying to do within Saudi Arabia, and you can't do it, or in Yemen, for instance, and you can't do because you want to keep yourself out of the, for instance, the government censorship, or some certain cases that would really affect your line of work. You can always reach out to international partners. So I'm in a good relationship, for instance, I'm sure you are in Yemen, with the Saudi office and Human Rights Watch and Amnesty and Frontline Defenders and Gulf Center for Human Rights. So through this network of international regional actors, you can pass the envelope actually to them, and you can give them what they need to do. And I can give it to other activists as well. So other activists who might be more available, more committed, more better at than myself to carry that. And this is how we managed to spread out, if you would think of it, while staying active and basically deflect the blame from your own organization if you have to.
Yes.
I really admire all of you. I know how hard it is to stand up and speak out, and I'm doing it here in the United States. We have our own issues. And I think our issues are becoming very clear, and it's something that each of you should be concerned about, is with our elections, what they show is there's a lot of us here in America that are very unhappy with what's going on with the corruption in our own country. And if it continues, it's going to hurt all of your countries.
Terribly sorry. Could you tell us?
And so my question is to you, all of you, is with our elections, you saw Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump take over. You saw our elite and our media trying to create what our government should be. Does that worry your countries?
And I'm terribly sorry, could you just identify yourself, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Janice Walt Grenadier. I'm from Alexandria, Virginia. I was illegally jailed and tortured over there till 5 o'clock on Election Day. I was held in solitary confinement for 14 days. And I'm standing up and speaking out instead of being silent about it.
So the question is, the current situation in America, does it worry our members of
does it worry your panel? Because if
perhaps
corruption takes over here.
So, Masih, maybe you'd like to have a crack at it.
Our government is so happy if Donald Trump wins the election. Because they need somebody to blame, and they need somebody to always show the Iranian society, see, America is corruption, we told you. And the slogan of, death to America gets louder and louder in Iran. And especially through Iranian state TV and state media, we can see that, how they're trying to show that Donald Trump is the one that all the people in America are supporting. But they totally kept silent about Hillary Clinton because they take her more serious, and they don't want a woman be in power in America, because it's going to encourage more women in the Middle East, around the world. So, of course, I don't want to say anything about the election here because I'm only here for less than 2 years. I'm not even have the right to vote here. But of course, it's going to influence the situation in Iran as well. But I want to add something about your question. I don't remember the name now. He's working on his mobile, but I'm going to ask his question. About what America can do. I remember during the demonstration in Iran after the stolen election, people took the street to protest against the government. So it was a true, Iranian-based protest, not supporting by Western governments. Mm-hmm. And I remember, first of all, I have to say, Obama means, in Persian, in my language, means he is with us. So people in the street were shouting and saying, Obama, you're either with us or with them, with the government. They wanted him to be with the people and support the demonstration. And the concern in the United States of America was that if we support the movement, then the government of Iran are going to label the protest and saying that you're supported by the Western government, by the great Satan. And they kept silent. And I remember in that time, people were getting shot. People were getting into prison. People were getting tortured to death and shouting and asking Obama to support them. But Obama was sending a secret letter to the supreme leader of Iran because he was worried. Or the main concern, as I said, they didn't want to label the domestic protest being supported by the Western media. But in any Western government, but in any way, we have been labeled. I myself, in Iranian state TV, they said that I am supported by CIA, MI6, I'm supported by Western government, which I've never had the chance to see any of the officials before, when I was in Iran. They kept accusing me when I was in Iran, exposing the corruption in the Iranian parliament. So it shows you that you are going to be labeled in the Middle East, whether you've been supported by international community or not. I myself was attacked by Iranian state TV saying that Masih Alinejad was raped in London by 3 men. Why? Because she undressed herself. So it shows that how they're scared of us, even outside Iran, and they try to discredit us. We are not asking the Western government to forget about, your
interests.
Yeah, interests. And of course, when you go and visit Iran, especially after Iran deal, you're thinking about your own interests as well, which is absolutely right, correct. But the thing is,